By the end of this video, you should be able to perform subjective refraction confidently on your patients as a clinician. And by the end of this video as well, I'm going to be revealing some major mistakes clinicians do while performing subjective refraction. So what is the purpose of subjective refraction? The purpose is to give your patient clear, single, binocular vision. You wouldn't want to finish subjective refraction and your patient is having diplopia or headaches. Okay, so watch to the end and let's get right into it. But before you start your subjective refraction, you need to make sure that the part of the phoropter resting on the patient's face is sanitized with alcohol wipes. And if you're going to be using trial frames, you make sure that you sanitize the trial frames properly. Subjective refraction starts from your objective findings, which could be your retinoscopy or your autorefraction findings. You can also start from the lensometry of your patient's habitual prescription. Those are the three main starting points for subjective refraction. Now, when you have gotten that, you have to explain what you're about to do to your patient. You need to explain in simple terms in the language your patient would understand. If you're going to be using the phoropter, first things first, you make sure that everything is set at 0. So let's make sure that everything on my phoropter is set at 0. Now, for my spherical power, we have 0 here, which is plano. And for our cylinder, let's see, it's set at 0 for the right eye. So let's move to the left eye to be sure that everything is set at 0. The cylindrical power is already at 0. The spherical power is already at 0. But there's a problem. When you look at the auxiliary lenses, it's on green lens, so we have to change it and make sure it is set at plano. We have to set our interpupillary distance lever to distance because we're going to start with the distance correction before we come to near. Now we're going to set the PD to suit your patient's face. In one of the YouTube videos I made, I explained the parts of the phoropter, so make sure you watch that video so you can understand how you can change the patient's pupillary distance and level the knob and everything. Okay, so now we have to take the bubble. Now we have to take the bubble to the center so that the phoropter can be level on the patient's face. So let's perform subjective refraction on our imaginary patient. The first thing you have to do is to make sure that everything on your phoropter is set at 0. Your spherical power, your astigmatic power, your auxiliary lenses should be open, so you should take it to open because you wouldn't want to leave it at occlude, or you wouldn't want to leave it at another auxiliary lens like a pinhole or a red lens, or a vertical red Maddox rod or a horizontal red Maddox rod. This is one of the mistakes I have seen students make in clinical examinations. They forget to unocclude the eyepiece, so make sure you do that. And then again, another mistake I also noticed that students make is that they don't move the interpupillary lever outwards because subjective refraction starts from distance, so you have to make sure it is outwards. You only bring it inwards when you're determining your patient's near addition. So this is for distance. First of all, we move it outwards. If you look at the phoropter head, you notice that it's a bit slanty, so make sure it is level by using the leveling knob to adjust it and setting the bubble at the center. I made a separate video where I explained the parts of the phoropter, so after this video just go back to it and watch that video. I'm also going to put the link in the description. The next thing you have to do is to make sure that your patient's interpupillary distance is properly set so that your patient's pupil aligns with the optical center of the lenses. Having done that, Remember, I said we'll start with the objective findings. So let's assume that the objective findings for this patient is +1 diopter sphere. So when you move down, you're adding plus lenses. +1, this is +1 diopter sphere, and then minus 050 diopter seal, and from your objective refraction you got axis 30. When you're performing subjective refraction, you do that monocularly. So what does that mean? We should occlude the left eye. Now we start. First, you determine your patient's best vision sphere. How do you determine the patient's best vision sphere? There are different methods, but in this video I'm going to be teaching you the maximum plus to maximum visual acuity method and the plus or minus method, which some people call the bracketing method. For the maximum plus maximum visual acuity procedure, is better done with the phoropter because it's easier for you to manipulate the lenses. But for the plus and minus method, you use the trial frame. So let's start with the maximum plus to maximum visual acuity method. So to do that, you blur the patients to 3 to 4 lines worse than the patient's best visual acuity. So that means you must have determined your patient's visual acuity before starting the refraction procedure, right? So let's assume your patient's best visual acuity was 6.6. You're supposed to blur the patient to about 6.12 by adding plus. By adding +1 diopter sphere above the spherical component of your objective finding. So remember that we imagined that the objective refraction finding for this patient, the spherical part is +1 and the astigmatic component is -050. So we're adding the +1 to the spherical component. So let's go ahead. We already have +1 here. So remember, when you're pulling down, you're adding plus lenses. So when we add +1 diopter above the +1 diopter, that should give us +2 diopter. So we have +2 diopter here. You ask the patient to read. So when the patient reads, you verify that the patient has been blurred by 3 to 4 lines worse than the patient's visual acuity. But sometimes when you even add this +1, your patient reports that the letters are not yet blurred. So you just keep adding the plus lenses until your patient reports that the 3 lines above the best visual acuity is blurred. So let's begin the procedure by asking the patient which is clearer. And when the patient is viewing the letters, you're reducing the plus lenses in 0.25 diopter steps. Let me also mention that the reason you add the +1 diopter sphere to blur these lines is to relax your patient's accommodation. So after adding the +1 diopter sphere above what the patient had, and the patient still can read the 6.6 line, that means the patient's accommodation has not been relaxed properly. You keep adding in 0.25 diopter steps until your patient reports that 3 to 4 lines above the best entry visual acuity has been blurred. So after blurring your patient's visual acuity, the next thing you have to do is to begin the process. You ask the patient, are the letters clearer with lens 1? Then you wait so that the patient would appreciate the clarity of the letters. Just wait for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then you reduce the amount of fog by 0.25 diopter sphere as you ask, or lens 2. So you're asking the patient which lens is clearer, lens 1 or lens 2. You continue to reduce the amount of fog in 0.5 diopter steps, and then you stop when there is no improvement in visual acuity. So the reason why we finish the best vision sphere before moving to the cylindrical component is to make sure that the circle of least confusion is on the retina. Now we're done with the spherical components of this prescription. We have to move to the cylinder. To refine the cylinder, you have to use the Jackson cross cylinder to refine the axis and the power. I have a separate video where I explained the JCC technique in detail. I'm going to add the link to the description for you to watch and learn how to refine your cylindrical axis and power. There's an important point to note here. If after refining your JCC, your cylindrical prescription changed by as much as 0.75 or 1 or even 0.50, please go back to your best vision sphere to ensure that the spherical component has not changed. When you're done with determining the cylindrical power and axis, you check the final spherical component using the Duochrome test. This is very important, especially in young patients. For older patients, you may not bother yourself with the Duochrome test because their pupils are naturally myotic and that might affect their responses. So for younger patients, it's actually very important. When you are done with the right eye, with the spherical power, the cylindrical power, record the visual acuity of that eye, and then you occlude and move to the left eye and repeat the whole process. While performing refraction on your patients, always ensure you stand to the side so you don't block your patient's line of sight. It can be useful to randomize the letters on computer-based systems when the final decisions are being made to avoid problems with letter memorization, because when your patient keeps reading the same set of letters over and over, they get to memorize them. So make sure you randomize the letters from time to time. Now we are done with the maximum plus and maximum visual acuity for this patient. Let us move to the plus and minus technique. For the plus and minus technique, we use the trial frame because it's easier to use the trial frame for this technique. The reason is that less adjustments are made here, unlike the maximum plus and maximum visual acuity. But the downside to this is that for young patients, it doesn't provide as much relaxation of accommodation as required. First of all, you occlude the patient's left eye. Remember that you have to start with the patient's objective refraction findings. Before you insert the lenses, you make sure you clean the lenses so that your patient doesn't have to look through smudged lenses, because that is going to affect your final prescription. So we have inserted our patient's spherical component of the objective finding, and we also insert the astigmatic component of our finding. After inserting those, you ready your plus 0.25 and minus 0.25 diopter sphere lenses for your patient, and you're going to present the two lenses to the patient. You ask the patient to look at the best visual acuity line. You ask the patient, do you see clearly with lens 1? Give the patient a little time to process that, and you take it out and ask, oh, is it better with lens 2? Let's assume your patient preferred it when the plus lens was there. You're going to change the spherical prescription of your patient by putting in the equivalent of what was there in addition to the plus 0.25 diopter sphere. So if we had plus 0.25 here, plus 0.25 and plus 0.25 combined together gives you plus 0.50. So we're going to take out the minus lens, and then we insert plus 0.50, which is the equivalent, and then we keep going. You ask a patient again, Do you see better with this lens or with lens 2? So that's how you keep going. But let's reverse the scenario. If in the beginning you asked your patient to compare between plus 0.25 and minus 0.25, and your patient preferred minus 0.25, what do? You step down the prescription by adding the equivalent of the original spherical component with the minus 0.25. Assuming we had plus 0.25 here, or let's just choose another prescription. Assuming we had plus 0.50 here and your patient prefers when minus 0.25 is there, the equivalent of the prescription will now be plus 0.25, because if you add plus 0.50 and minus 0.25, it gives you plus 0.25. So you're going to take that out and you add the equivalent. The equivalent becomes your plus 0.25. So you keep going that way until the patient reports that there is no other significant change. You're going to stop at the minimum minus that gave your patient the best vision. When you're done, you verify your cylindrical component by using your Jackson cross cylinder. I have a separate video on that, so watch that and learn how to refine your patient cylindrical axis and power. For the plus and minus method, since you're using the trial frame, you use the handheld JCC, unlike the maximum plus and maximum visual acuity method, which you perform with the phoropter. You use the JCC on the phoropter. After performing your refraction, which is the spherical component and the cylindrical component, you do your Duochrome test, especially on younger patients, to make sure that your spherical component is accurate. It's either you do the Duochrome test or you do the +1 blot test. For the Duochrome test, I'm going to demonstrate that in a separate video because there's a lot to talk about on Duochrome test. After confirming the best vision sphere using the Duochrome test and or the +1 blot test, you have to balance accommodation on both eyes, and that is called binocular balancing. I already made a video separately on that. I'm going to also drop that in the description box. So I also mentioned I was going to drop the video I made on JCC technique and the phoropter parts. So watch all of that and drop your questions in the comments if you have a question. Here are common mistakes clinicians make when it comes to subjective refraction, in no particular order. Number 1, not cleaning the trial lenses when performing the plus and minus technique. You have to make sure that you clean the lenses, because if it's smudged, your findings are not going to be accurate. If you also want to pick up the lenses, you pick it by the ring. Never hold the lenses on the lens itself. That is 1. 2, over-minusing patients. Some clinicians over-minus their patients. Before you introduce minus lenses to your patients, you need to understand if your patient actually sees clearer or the lens is making the patient to see the letters darker and smaller. There's a difference between seeing a letter clearer and the lens making the letters smaller and darker. You need to understand these differences. Ask your patient. So you need to be sure that the minus lens actually improves the patient's visual acuity before you introduce that. Because if you over-minus your patient, you could induce accommodation, and that can lead to headaches and your patient returning that they cannot function with the glasses which you have given to them. So you need to take note of that. It's very important. Another mistake is not ensuring that the circle of least confusion is on the retina. That happens when you don't determine your best vision sphere accurately before jumping to JCC, and even after performing your JCC, you still need to verify the best vision sphere. And remember I said that if your cylindrical power changes significantly, recheck your patient's best vision sphere, just so your patient's circle of this confusion is on the retina. The next mistake is not allowing your patients to process the lenses that you introduce for them, especially the older patients, because they have a longer processing times than the younger patients. So you need to be patient and give your patient enough time to process the lenses. The next mistake is not setting up your phoropter properly by putting everything at 0 or occluding the eye that you're working on, occluding the other eye that you're not working on, making sure that the phoropter head is level, making sure that the IPDs are appropriately set. If this video made sense to you, give it a like, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and share this video with your colleagues. Let's keep practicing, let's keep learning.